welcome to this edition of In Focus. I want to talk to you about a topic that is on a lot of people's minds. It's a delicate topic, and it is delicate because people are basing their opinions upon the information, the disinformation, the misinformation that's being fed to them through the mainstream. And it is something that affects every one of our lives every day, and that is the central bank digital currency, CBDCs, that are being proposed. What are they? What do they mean? Are they a good thing? Are they a bad thing? You know, I was speaking to a friend of mine recently, and what he said to me echoes what so many people are hearing in the mainstream. Aren't central bank digital currencies simply the government's version of a Bitcoin? Boy, nothing could be further from the truth. And I want to talk to you about why that is. And I want to talk to you about where we are in this rollout. It is happening, and it's happening in ways that are not openly shared in the mainstream. Let me give you an example of what I mean by this. There was a conference that was held in Washington, D.C. in April of this year, 2023. It was April 10th. The conference was the World Bank Group International Monetary Fund. And it was during this conference that a white paper was announced from the Digital Currency Monetary Authority. Now, most of us have never even heard of these organizations, or if we have, we don't spend a lot of time keeping current on what they're saying. The Digital Currency Monetary Authority announced the release of a white paper, and it is available, and I'm sharing with you the where you can find this white paper. There's the reference on the screen here. The white paper is announcing the existence of a digital currency that has already been developed by the Digital Currency Monetary Authority. And the reason that this is important, here's the showing where the paper is actually coming from. The reason this paper is important is because it's announcing the launch of a international bank digital currency, IBDC. This is very different from what we've been led to believe. We've been told that the idea of a digital currency is in its infancy, that it's in the research stage. I want to get the exact date here. President Joe Biden signed an executive order 14067 in March of 2022, so about a year ago, that allowed the development of a central bank digital currency. What this white paper is saying is we're past that development stage. It is already implemented. The infrastructure is now already in place on the world monetary system level to be adopted at local levels or at national levels by different countries. So this is a very, very different way of thinking from what we've been led to believe. We've been told that this is, 2 or 3 years down the road, and what the white paper is saying is this is here. And we actually know this is here because the Bank of Canada has given its citizens until middle of June. I believe it's June 19th. I could be wrong on that date, but it's sometime in mid-June for public comment on whether or not the Bank of Canada is going to implement the central bank digital currencies. If the Canadian citizens want that central bank digital currency, and they're being given a lot of reasons of why this is a good thing. So I want to talk to you about this because same thing is happening here in the United States. It's being cloaked under different names. There's some really, really sexy marketing out there that makes the central bank digital currency look really appealing. So I want to talk to you about what it is, what it means, why it's not Bitcoin, how it differs from Bitcoin, and why Bitcoin is even in this conversation at all. So I'll just begin by acknowledging this is a very complex issue, and I will do my best to do justice to the conversation in this brief video. I'm going to try to keep it brief. And to do that, I'm going to refer to other topics that I've already developed the videos on. We'll put the links down below so I don't have to be redundant and share it all here. Central bank digital currency, what is it? It is essentially a digital version of the money or the currency, which is not actually money, that we have existing right now. Why do I say it's not money? For something to be money, it has to be backed by something that is concrete, tangible, and of value. And the currency that we have right now is no longer backed by gold or anything else that is of value. The value of the dollar is based upon the trust in the United States government and the faith in the United States system of banking. Well, I think you all know that our system is in trouble, and a lot of that is because the powers that be have abused the trust that has been placed in them when it comes to the banking system, when it comes to the financial system. We talk about this in some of the other videos. The dollar has been weaponized. It's used as sanctions against other nations. It is being manipulated. This is the reason we have inflation. It is the reason that interest rates are rising right now to try to curb that inflation. It's all about the abuse of power when it comes to the dollar. And this has a lot to do with why this digital currency is being put into place. So the currency itself, it is based upon the idea of a blockchain. And the blockchain technology I talk about in one of the videos posted below. It is the technology that allows Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies to be what they are. But here's the difference. The crypto blockchains, Bitcoin is a distributed, non-centralized form of digital currency. The central bank digital currency is just that. It is being issued, it's being regulated by the central bank. So it's a digital version of a dollar that's already broken. There's nothing backing our dollar, and that's why your purchasing power is declining so quickly, because so many dollars are being flooded into the system in what's called quantitative easing. Every one of those dollars, digital dollars, or the imaginary dollars that are being put in there now, you know, it's about adding zeros on a computer in a centralized location. Every one of those that is added dilutes the value of what you have in your savings account and your checking account. And we're seeing so much dilution now. That's what the inflation is really all about, in spite of what we're being told. We're being given all kinds of reasons for the inflation. The bottom line is that there is nothing backing the dollar, so there's nothing stopping the central banks from printing additional dollars, which is what the debt ceiling debate is all about, that's happening right now while we're having this conversation. So central bank digital currency, it is a digital version of the dollar that's already there. It is centralized. It is not distributed like Bitcoin is. And what that means, the centralization means it can be controlled. Every dollar can be programmed. Now, is that a good thing or a bad thing? Well, technology is just technology. It's not good, bad, right, or wrong. It's the thinking underlying the technology that determines how it's applied in our lives. So the idea of a digital currency, what we're being told is it's convenient, it's safe, it's secure. At what cost do we want that convenience, safety, and security? Because a digital currency, every dollar can be programmed. Now, what does that mean? That means that you can be forced to use that money in very specific ways. For example, if we're talking about universal basic income, which is on a lot of people's minds, if all of a sudden a certain amount of money, say $1,000 a month, shows up in your account from the universal basic income and it is in programmable currency, what that means is that your $1,000 can have an expiration date. You can be told you must spend this $1,000 by the end of this 30 days or it disappears. To force you to put that money into the system prevents you from saving that money. How can you create savings if your money that is digital, it's nothing you can hold in your hand, if it is being programmed, or if you are spending your money on things that are not socially acceptable? Well, you go to use your credit card to buy gasoline for your vehicle. If the gasoline that you're buying, that is going to show up as a fuel purchase in a programmable currency. And if you have driven more in a 30-day period than is believed to be socially acceptable, or if you're using too much fuel of a certain kind, if you're going beyond a certain radius, it can be, you could be either denied that purchase, or you could be fined because you're driving more than what the limits say these should be. Now, this sounds a little crazy to some people, but the climate change conversation, this is why this is such a complex topic, because our finances are linked into so many different facets of our lives, and the climate change narrative, the disinformation, the misinformation about climate change, which I address in many videos on this channel, and the levels of CO2 and all of that. If that narrative is the foundation for the social policies that are being driven in our society, and that's exactly what's happening, then it's not so far-fetched that we could be forced to limit how we commute, how we drive, and things like that through this digital currency. You could be prevented from making certain purchases or giving money to people that you want to give money to. Now, does it mean these things will happen? It doesn't mean they will happen. It means that this makes it possible in a way that is not possible with the currencies that we're using right now. So it allows for surveillance, and the bottom line for all of this, it allows for an unprecedented level of control. Now, is control a good thing or a bad thing? Is it right or wrong? Again, it's the context within which that control is occurring. If you believe that you are living under a system of governance that cares about you, that wants to protect you, that is a benevolent system, and that everything they would put in place would only be helpful to you and for the betterment of your life and the life of your family, then this is a perfect system. And if you believe that something other than that is happening, then this is a system that you may want to rethink. It's being called the digital Bitcoin. Now, I have two videos on Bitcoin and blockchain technology, so I won't go into all of the details, but the bottom line to Bitcoin, it was developed by a mysterious developer. To this day, we do not know with absolute certainty. There have been lawsuits, there has been speculation, but the point is, to this day, we do not know who developed Bitcoin specifically. It was under the pseudonym of Satoshi Nakamoto. We don't know if that was an individual, a consortium. We do not know that. It was developed after the financial crisis in 2008, precisely because of the financial crisis in 2008. In that crisis, banks abused the privilege of banking. Governments abused the privilege of being able to maintain a financial system. And the printing of the money, what was called quantitative easing 1, quantitative easing 2, quantitative easing 3. Then we went to Q infinity, and we're still quantitative easing. We're printing money. We did this over COVID, creating more money in the system in 2 years than has been in the system since the system began, diluting the value of the dollar. So to prevent this kind of manipulation, Satoshi Nakamoto developed Bitcoin. It is a peer-to-peer system, which means that you and I can have transactions without going through a centralized authority, without going through a central bank. If you want to wire money, if you want to wire money today, you have to go down during banking hours, so you're limited on when you can do it. You're going to pay a fee. The bank asks you all kinds of questions about why you're sending the money, where it comes from, who it's going to, and it can take up to 3 days for that wire to actually go through. We're a peer-to-peer system. It takes a matter of fractions of seconds. For people that are, there's so many applications where this becomes important. If you are an immigrant in this country and you're working to send money back to your family in another country, the traditional systems, you go through the banking, you go through Western Union or something like that. They're going to take their fees. Then the governments on the other end are going to take their fees. And by the time that money gets to your family, they have only a fraction of what it was that you intended to send to them. That's not the case with Bitcoin. It is a peer-to-peer, non-centralized system. The central bank digital currency is a centralized system that is controlled. Bitcoin cannot be controlled. And that is one of the reasons of the concern. That's why the central banks are urging people not to accept digital currencies, or they're lumping all cryptocurrencies into one basket. I'm going to make a distinction. Bitcoin is completely separate from all of the other cryptocurrencies that are out there. Bitcoin was the original blockchain. It has never been hacked. It is one of the most secure. It's based on what is called SHA-256 encryption algorithms developed. This is what NSA uses to encrypt their algorithms. Just to give you an idea, and I talk about this in the videos, to hack this kind of an algorithm, I want to tell you how safe the actual blockchain is. If you take the number of atoms that physicists estimate exist in the universe, that is the number of attempts, the number of times, the number of combinations that a computer would have to go through to find and the right numbers and to break into the Bitcoin blockchain. So some point down the road, quantum computers may be able to do this. Right now, it is unbreakable. It's never been hacked. It is the most secure blockchain. What has been hacked are the platforms that host the Bitcoin, the digital banks that are have been run with greed and corruption. Like FTX is a beautiful example. That's probably the best known example. But the Bitcoin was never hacked. It was the place where it was stored. So Bitcoin is decentralized. Central bank digital currencies are centralized. Bitcoin cannot be controlled. Central bank digital currencies are 100% controlled. Bitcoin is a transparent ledger. You have 100% visibility to every transaction that precedes the one where you have that Bitcoin in your possession, in your digital possession. It's not the case with central bank digital currencies. You don't have access to that kind of transparency. And it is not as secure. The Bitcoin is secure. The central bank digital currencies do not have that level of security. So although they are based upon crypto principles, they are not Bitcoin. And that's one of the reasons I'm talking about Bitcoin while I'm talking about the CBDCs. The other reason is people are asking, okay, if we're going to go to a CBDC, if we don't have any say about it, what's interesting is governments want it, central banks want it, and when you ask the people, they do not want it. Do we have a say in what our financial system looks like? Well, we do, maybe not the way you think, because if you do not want to be a part of that system, you have to find an alternative system. What are the alternative systems that are not centralized and that are not regulated and that are not subject to the level of manipulation? Historically, it has been things like precious metals, we all know this, like gold and silver, which can be manipulated in the markets. The prices have been suppressed and they have been manipulated, but not to the degree that the dollar has. And they are concrete, tangible assets. You can hold that in your hand. The new alternative now includes Bitcoin. There's a banking crisis that is happening in the world, and it's not over. And I talk about that banking crisis in another video. Because people are concerned about what's happening with their money in the banks, they're pulling their money out of the banks and they're looking for alternatives. Where can they put their money for long-term store of value? And they are looking at precious metals, they are looking at gold, they are looking at silver, and a whole lot of people, including the big investment companies like Vanguard and BlackRock, may not like them, but they're smart people. And they see what's happening, they know what's coming. They are putting a substantial portion of their money into Bitcoin. Bitcoin, as I've mentioned in the video that is linked below, it is people say, where's the value in Bitcoin? It's based on nothing. The value is based, number one, on its scarcity. Only 21 million Bitcoin will ever be created. 19 of those have already been mined through the digital process called mining. There's a 4-year cycle that Bitcoin goes through where it typically is tremendously volatile, and you're seeing that now. It will reach a peak and it will usually retrace at least 50%, maybe 80% of its value. But I mean, if you watch it every day, it'll give you whiplash watching the value of Bitcoin. But year over year, it is unparalleled in terms of preservation of wealth. If you look from 2009, when it was introduced, until today, year over year, it outperforms the S&P, it outperforms the Dow, it outperforms commodities, everything. So if you're looking for an alternative, this is one of the places where the financially savvy people are putting at least a portion of their, of the what they value. Now, I can't give financial advice. Now, this isn't financial advice. I'm simply sharing what's happening. And many of you have asked about alternatives. We have to say that Bitcoin now is an alternative. Securities and Exchange Commission has identified Bitcoin as a commodity, not it is taxed like a commodity is taxed. So that decision came down, I think it's 2018, 17, 18, somewhere around in there. So it is not a security. It's not taxed like if you own shares, of Apple or, IBM or something like that. It's taxed completely differently. So personally, what I would say is I think it's a good idea never to put all of your eggs in one basket. You would never want to put your life savings into any one place, into digital. Digital is only good as long as the internet is up. And if you lose power from some black swan event, like a solar flare or, a nuclear detonation or whatever, you can't access your Bitcoin. So you don't want to have all of that, your family's entire wealth in something like that. So I think it's always a good idea to have some concrete assets. People buy land, they buy food, they invest in food, agricultural land, farmland, precious metals, primarily gold and silver, which have been seen and valued as money for over 5,000 years. And were in the United States, we had gold and silver backing our currencies until 1971. So when we depegged from the gold standard. So the central bank digital currencies, they are electronic. They mimic some of the principles of cryptocurrencies, and what we're being told is all of the convenience. Yeah, it can be convenient. To a large extent, many of us have stopped using cash anyway, partly because it's not accepted. I have been to stores where I tried to pay in cash and they just look at me like, I'm from another planet. They won't take my cash. I travel a lot for business, obviously, and I'm forced to use credit cards when I travel if I want to have food and water and things like that as I'm going through the cities and the airports. So a lot of us have been forced to use primarily credit cards anyway. So that's not the problem. And I want to be really clear. The idea of the digital currency, I have no problem with that from a technological perspective. It's a technological answer to money. It's the context within which it's being offered. It is the politics of the nations that we live in today, the movement to take away freedoms for governments to have more and more and more control, largely driven by ideas, utopian ideas of an agenda and a world that a handful of people believe that we need. This is the world where everything is digital. It's called the singularity, where everything that we have is digital, everything that our bodies are becoming digital if we adopt the technology that is being offered into our blood and into our veins and into our organs and our bodies. This is, there are a couple of competing visions based upon competing agendas for what the world should look like. And it becomes much more possible to achieve those agendas and visions if the world is controlled through a digital currency. So different countries are posing this differently. The UK, they've got their version. The Bank of England is offering their version. A lot of South American banks are offering their version. Like I said, Canada is putting it to their people as to whether or not they want it or not. America, it's coming. And these central bank digital currencies were piloted in 3 US cities on the East Coast in the New England area, I believe it's December of 2022. If they're piloting, it means they already exist. They're testing them in the markets. The white paper that I just shared with you says the technology is already there. So right there, what we have been told is simply not supported by the evidence. We're not in the early stage. We're not in the development stage. This isn't an idea of something years down the road. And we need to be aware of where this is and what it is that we are supporting, because it's going to influence how we go forward in every facet of our lives, because every facet of your life is linked to an economy and your ability to participate in that economy to the degree that you do. So if you want to participate in society, this is an important conversation. So my personal opinion is that this could be a very dangerous step at this point in our social evolution because of the context of where we are, because of the overreach by governments into every facet of our lives. This is a pathway that allows even deeper overreach. So this is a question, it's a very deep and personal question. You have to ask yourself, do you believe that the government of the country, I realize people from outside the US are watching this, do you believe the government of your country cares about you, has your best interest in mind, and that everything they would do or develop is to help you have a better life, to help you be happier, healthier, more fulfilled, to be able to support yourself and your families in the best way possible? And if your answer to that is yes, then a digital currency may be the way that you want to go. And if your answer to that is no, then I've given you a couple of alternatives, something to think about. All right, so I hope this helps to understand these ideas of digital currencies and where they are. I didn't want to get really technical, but I want you to know that we're out of the development stage. The implementation, all of the infrastructure exists, and the implementation is the phase that we're in right now. So drop me a line, let me know how you feel about this. If you want me to go deeper, if you think you need more detail, check out the other videos I've already done where I go deep into blockchain, I go deep into Bitcoin, what it is and what it is not. I go deep into the banking crisis, all on this YouTube channel. Thank you so much for sharing part of your day with me today. I look forward to our next.